All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for our podcast.
Yes, number 4.
Episode 4. We've done 4 of these now. This is cool.
Yes.
Well, technically we've done 3, but this will be 4.
Exactly.
So, Jacob, we've got some very basic announcements to let everyone know about right up front.
Yes.
What can we expect from this week for people?
Well, Tuesday, Hunter x Hunter, as usual.
As usual.
Wednesday, Psychopaths. Oh boy. And then Thursday, Hunter x Hunter again. Friday, the ever-popular My Hero Academia. Saturday, Ruby Chibi. Sunday, One Punch Man. But wait, there's more.
Yes.
We're going to be having our Game of Thrones Season 7 recap live stream. Yeah.
6 p.m. Pacific time.
Right.
So if you're wanting to tune in, just make sure to work your clocks accordingly so that you're able to tune in there. If you're not, that's okay. We'd love to have your comments and interaction in the recorded bit that we'll be uploading to YouTube once the live stream is over.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty exciting, Jacob.
Yes.
We've been breaking a lot of goals recently with our our Patreon.
You guys have been awesome.
You guys have been fantastic. It's been incredible. We recently finished our first month of being on Patreon officially, and as such have broken our 2K goal. We have a poll that's almost done.
Yes.
With a couple shows that are very close in there. You can check those out in the Patreon link in the description. But also, we've got a poll for a convention meetup.
Correct. In 2018.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we plan this out plenty of time in advance.
So we'll be letting you guys know whether or not we'll be going to RTX, San Diego Comic-Con, or a con of your choice.
Right.
Yeah. But also we wanted to shout out one of our VIP Patreon members, Bastian Solinger. I think we're saying that correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, you've been awesome. Guys, this is one of the first people that was like a regular commenter in our videos back when we did Ruby.
Way
back in the day. So, dude, you're awesome, and thanks for the support.
Yeah, it really means a lot.
All right, so what's the first bit on the agenda?
Now, so this segment for this video, we will be going over character introductions. We have a couple favorites for this, but before that, let's talk about just in general. Caleb, what do you think makes for a really great character introduction?
I think it needs to be distinct from other character introductions. So when you have a character introduced as the main character, people should be able to tell that this is the main character. Luke Skywalker, for instance, when he's introduced, you can tell he's the main character. But when Han Solo is introduced, you know immediately that he has this kind of roguish kind of edge to him, and he's got a little bit of snark, ego, all this extra stuff that's added to him, and it's not dramatic up front, but they solidify it with a dramatic event following the introduction.
Right.
So one of the things that I would say a lot of good introductions need is the soft introduction, where we get the basics of the character, and then a dramatic solidification of said introduction.
Okay.
Like, what would be some things that you would see needed to be added to that formula as well?
So you need to have... I would say this is something that anime usually does very well, but you need to have something about the design and the aesthetic that helps them stand apart from the crowd, because a lot of the times, even if you have a great way of like writing an introduction, right, you need to, like, most I read somewhere that the human attention span now is like 6 seconds. Like, that's less than a dog's. Like, right, we're very, very much like immediate right now.
Right.
So that visual kind of stimulation can give you that little bit to wait long enough for the written introduction to actually take place.
For sure. But what about a live action thing or a book where there is no visual aspect?
Well, you can do a lot of crazy things in those situations too, even without, like, say, in anime, making them have spiky hair and all that kind of stuff. A lot of times just by showing contrast, that's one way to have a great character introduction, because that is really how you make them stand out, right? Make them be different from what's going on. So the stronger of the stronger that basically the environment is of a set tone, then the more opportunity you have for them to be introduced more strongly, because the deviations from that environment will be more intensely felt. right?
Right.
So that's why if you have characters that are polar opposites, that can make for great character introductions, because you know what you're getting from one person, and then that comes into stark contrast with this other person.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I also like to do with character introductions is there needs to be a focal point through which the character is getting introduced, like a lens. So, for example, Ned Stark in Game of Thrones,
Sure.
the way he is introduced is through the lens of Bran Stark, his youngest son, well, one of his younger sons. And by that lens, we basically see this man that is very stern and cold from the stance that he will do what needs to be done. But then when he goes to talk to his son, there's this warmth that's added from it, and there's a contradiction there. There's a contrast. Also, he is very direct in his words. He's very focused. There's all this extra detail that's kind of inferred because the character that we're seeing this through perceives certain things over others. And then if you have a group that's being introduced to a character, it's hard to do this, but have different things that they notice. So
Sure.
one character might notice some aspect of a character, but another one will notice something completely different. And from that standpoint, you get things where the main character, for instance, wouldn't have noticed a different aspect about the character unless that side character had pulled something out
Right.
into the forefront.
And that can be a sort of a twofold attack of awesome, because one, that gives you better introduction for this new character, right? Because
Right.
you're getting multiple facets of their personality up front. But that also can be great for the characters doing the observing, because based on what they notice, that gives us a little bit of insight into who they are and what are the things that they keep an eye out for.
Also, it gives an opportunity for when their observations are made to have the character that's being introduced subvert them immediately
Right.
by denying expectations on what is surface level observation. So one of the examples of characters we're going to bring up gives that very, very immediate example where there's this kind of obvious picture put up front, but once they start to think about it and they start to see this character being introduced, they go, oh, we were completely wrong about all of our assumptions about this character. Also, another thing that you can do is you can really endear yourself to a character immediately in an introduction by the choices that character makes immediately.
Yes.
And one of the things that's really important to do is have a character, if you want them to be likable immediately rather than choose to have them be likable later.
Yes.
Even if they're not a great character right at the get-go, have something about them be likable, because one of the things that some stories will do is they'll intentionally introduce a character as not likable so that they can go through an arc to where they become likable, and that's very risky to do.
And one of the things I would say is the more aggressive the character introduction, the better. Because since we don't really know anything about this character, we don't have a foundation to work off of.
Totally.
That's why a lot of the time stories will use tropes that are tried and true, and sometimes they don't turn it into anything more than that, which is unfortunate. But the reason that those tropes are so helpful is because they say, all right, you have a very clear understanding of who this character is at the surface. There's no confusion about that point. And then when they do things that subvert that, you notice that not as being just, oh, this is something I didn't know about the character, but oh no, this is actual subtlety and growth and depth, right? Which is, it's really special when that happens.
Because when that happens, effectively what you've done is you've given this character mystery, but it's not mystery. You've basically unveiled a little bit of a mystery, and you as a reader or as a watcher or viewer or what have you, you want to know more. So it kind of leads you on down the trail of this character's story. One of the things that you can do with kind of giving that immediate subversion is you can avoid the whole problem of subverting the character later down the road and having a bunch of people end up not liking the character because you led them down a specific direction, but you subverted it at a time where they had already solidified this character as being this type of character in their minds. So if you're going to subvert the character's kind of direction down the road, give foreshadowing hints to that in the character introduction.
Right. Because the audience will basically assume that whatever is introduced first is most important and is most of the foundation for the character, right?
Exactly.
So if you don't introduce something in the beginning, they will see it as potentially even like bad writing if you try and have character development that's not what they expected later. And that's kind of scary if you think about it.
Yeah, one of the characters that has one of the most subtle introductions, at least in the movie, is Snape from Harry Potter.
Yes.
This isn't one of the characters we're going to be bringing up, but he has a moment where he's basically just staring at Harry, and Harry's scar starts to burn.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this whole look of like, oh my gosh, this guy might be bad, this guy might be evil.
Yeah.
But what you get is this very subtle interaction where it makes you go, this guy, we need to be watching out for him. And then over the course of the whole movie, you effectively get the introduction that there's a little bit more going on with this guy, and he's got some past stuff, but the character itself is an enigma. So if you're going for the enigma, mysterious type character, make sure that you reveal some mysteries quickly, but don't reveal the full picture.
Exactly. Then. Like with Snape, they had the whole thing where they think, oh, Snape's the bad guy, but then they realize that he was actually protecting Harry the whole time.
Yeah.
That's not anywhere close to the big reveal for Snape that we get later on.
Not at all.
That was enough for us to be on the lookout for those things, to know that, oh, okay, they're like you were saying, this character is an enigma, there will be reveals, and I need to keep my eyes peeled for them.
Right. Okay, so first character, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I think I should go first, because yours is a little bit more unique. So, my character is Crow. Crow is a character from the show Ruby, made by Rooster Teeth. And to not give any spoilers about what this character is or what it can do, this character has one of the most aggressive character introductions in the entire show, in the entire series of Ruby. And one of the things that it's done very well is the character's personality, dialogue, sound, feel, design, all these things are completely unique. And that's all to the credit of the creators of the show, because every character they bring up seems at least relatively unique.
Yes.
Most of them do not seem like carbon copies with like one quirk changed of a previous character. Mm-hmm. Crow is an example of a character where once he's on the scene, not only do you fall in love with his character, but you also go, this character brings up some questions.
Yeah.
Because once he's introduced, you can tell that he has a very close connection to the main character. He is a character that has been talked about previously without really any visual aids or context. You know that he trained Ruby. You know that there's the family connection there as well. You know that at the very least there's some kind of drama that went down in the past with him and others involved, but you don't know details and stuff. But once he's on the scene, he's immediately causing a conflict, which, to be fair, is actually a good way to aggressively introduce a new character. Is their dynamic shakes up the existing dynamic.
Right.
So Crow being put on the scene shakes up everyone's dynamic, and in some ways it shakes up the entire show's dynamic. And I can't explain why, but it's really good. Once he's on the scene, he's almost immediately fighting someone, verbally and also then eventually physically. Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to show off the potential for the character. But there's moments where a side character like Mercury will kind of watch this character being brought onto the scene and come by, and there's this look of dread in their eyes. Then they go running to go off and tell someone, this guy is here. That kind of little bit of world building goes, this guy's being taken seriously.
Yep. And you don't know why yet.
Yeah, you don't know why yet. But up until this point in the story, there were a bunch of people that were kind of the leaders. You know, they were in charge of most of things. You know, Ozpin, Good Witch, and Ironwood. But when Crow comes on the scene, they all immediately go, whoa, dude, why are you here? And, like, you're supposed to be doing things like, we don't need you here. And he's talking to them all like they're equals, or like he doesn't even care about their authority. It's this dynamic where his character has that almost conflict-causing immaturity, but there's this experience and wisdom behind it that's tempering it just enough to where he's not saying anything stupid.
Right.
If anything, you can see that there's areas where he goes dangerously close to comic relief, but then he pulls back seriously by reminding our main characters what the real problem here is, what the real threat it is. He comes in almost as this harbinger, which is very, apropos for his name being, related to a bird. He's kind of coming in with this message of doom, basically. But I particularly really love not only the fact that since he's in an animated show, you can have this dramatic visual stuff, but that his voice actor is one of the legends of the industry,
yes.
Vic Mignogna, does a very good job of conveying the, I would say the salty, kind of grumpy, kind of worldly, experienced traveler rogue that this character is. And that's kind of a catch-all bunch of phrases mushed together that don't even fully describe Crow. But that kind of gives you an idea that already just from this point, we're maybe about 2 to 4 minutes into his introduction, these are the things that you can gather from this character, even though only a couple of those things were actually talked about in previous story bits. I love a couple lines that he has, and I'm going to do a little impersonation here, so bear with me. When he comes into this whole scene, there's a character that's like, if you were one of my men, I would have you shot. And he just responds back so quickly while pulling out a flask to drink from. He's like, if I was one of your men, I'd shoot myself. And it's this perfect example of just... It's so good. It's this perfect example of him just being like, I don't care. Like, whatever. I've got things to do. Don't throw your sass at me. And eventually he's getting this jive from another character, Winter, who had sparred with him previously, and she's kind of talking back to him, and he has this line where he goes, I had reason to assume you don't even need to be here. And then he looks around at everyone else, he's like, seriously, who invited her? And it's this moment where you think, dude, okay, you're being a little bit petty, but then they respond like, okay, you need to leave. And she's astonished. She's like, wait, but sir... And they're like, leave now.
Yep.
And then they have like a serious conversation after that, and you realize, oh, like he's been on a mission, and things have gotten serious. So I tried to keep it as spoiler free as possible. But Crow is an example of a very dramatic character introduction for a single character that had been built up a little bit in the past, but you have almost no context for until you actually behold.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to point out that I absolutely loved from Crow's introduction. Yeah. So when he's doing his whole fight thing, Ruby comes along and she hears that this character, not Crow, but someone else is being attacked by this madman, and she's like, "Oh no, who would do such a thing?" And then she sees that it's Crow, and she's like, "Hey, it's my uncle! Kick her butt, Uncle Crow!" And like. The fact that the main character holds this new character in such high regard, and then, of course, there's also the family relationship. Mm-hmm. It's great.
What it does is it elevates Crow in our mind to being of higher value. Right. Everything that the main character perceives is used as a vessel to communicate how the audience should perceive things. Exactly. If that's done well, then it works. And then it works. Well said. What about your character, Jacob?
All right, so this one is another sassy... OP character with quite the introduction that also involves fighting with a little bit of foreshadowing beforehand. That's Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
Now, so Toph is introduced in the second season. Mm-hmm. So the show is like very much already established, right? We know what's going on. We know about all the other characters.
Kind of like Crow.
Yeah. And then they have to introduce this new character. They do little bits to, build up that, okay, Aang needs an earthbending teacher, things like that. But when they introduce Toph, they've taken this other side character, right? And had them fighting people and sort of, to basically just build them up as like, oh yeah, this person's pretty bad, right? And then Toph steps onto the scene and just destroys him.
Okay, describe Toph for them, Jacob.
So Toph is 12 years old. She is really, really short because, she's 12.
Like 4'11".
Yeah, like 4'11". Like she is tiny, maybe shorter than that.
Like 4'8" or something.
She's blind. Okay, just let that sink in for a minute. She is blind. She cannot see. And the person that she's going up to fight against literally was designed after Dwayne The Rock. Yeah. So that is a pretty good setup already. But then she proceeds to throw a ton of sass at him right out the gate. He is like terrified. He's like, all right, how am I going to do this? And then she just destroys him. She basically causes him to fall into a splits without intending to. Mm-hmm. And then one hit, he's out for the count. Mm-hmm. And then she just takes her award for winning the tournament and leaves.
Yep.
Wow. Like, and there's a bit more to it than that, but they did the thing of having the character be very proficient at what they do, be very powerful and stuff, mm-hmm. and they did it very, very well, because they didn't try to make her like, ooh, edgy and cool or anything like that. She was just like, yeah, she knew how OP she was, and she loved it. Like, she was completely having fun with it, and it was such a contrast with how the other characters were, because at this point in the show, you basically have Zuko, who is the angsty teen, who, has his cool story and everything. You have Katara, hope, and optimism and all that stuff, and inspirational speeches. You have Sokka, the everyman, normal guy with sarcasm and plans. And then you have Aang, the happy-go-lucky kid. And then somehow Toph just sort of comes into all this, and she's more like badass, and her attitude is so completely like as if she's like 10 foot tall and bulletproof, yet everyone else in the world, if they didn't know how good she was,
right,
would say this is one of the weakest, most vulnerable people out there that can't do anything for themselves.
Right.
And it's absolutely amazing. Like, that just makes every bit of it better. Her sass, her skills at fighting and all that. And the thing is, she's not just like great at fighting and like overpowers people, but she's smart too. Mm-hmm. When she first does a fight, she basically just waits for the person to make a mistake, to get too aggressive, whatever, and then she just takes him out. And that makes it even more satisfying, because it's not just that she overpowered him,
right,
but she was better. She knew what she was doing.
Right.
And then there's a whole lot of stuff that happens later with her character, but I remember when I first watched Airbender, a long time ago, and Toph got her introduction, I immediately wondered, how did they even keep the show going before Toph? Like what did they do? Where was the comedy? Like, where was it? Because Toph was that awesome. And of course, when I would go back and rewatch it, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, Sokka was great, and they had some good stuff, but like, Toph completely like stole the spotlight the minute she showed up.
That's fantastic. Another thing that Toph does is a really cool aspect of her character, is that when she's on the screen, your eyes are completely focused on her because of what she might do, what she is doing, or what she could do. One of the things that her character also has is that although she is this, unstoppable badass, her character is actually emotionally and psychologically one of the more vulnerable characters in the show, because of the fact that she was this sheltered kid who was unable to leave more than 50 feet from her house, basically, without supervision. Understandably, she's still young,
and she's blind.
But that whole blind earthbender thing, complete secret, doesn't tell anyone.
Yep.
She holds this alter ego identity, which she's built up as being the persona of this master earthbender. And then when everyone sees her, everyone's like, what? She's just a blind little girl. And they do that just statement. She's just a little girl. She's blind. She's just this. And then Toph defies all those expectations and is even better than just the character who, just takes these elements and becomes stronger for it. She actually teaches the group whole new things with the dynamic. But also she has a really quick heart-to-heart with Aang, where she talks about her heart for adventure and freedom, which is something that Aang really identifies with, but also really kind of telling her like what it's like to have this fresh and different perspective on the world, because of her earthbending, but also because of her blindness.
And I just gotta say, like, because in Avatar they do like episodic stuff, and then it has an overarching storyline, right?
Right.
So the episode 6 of season 2 is devoted to Toph, right? It is her
Yes.
introduction episode, and they take her on a little arc where you first discover her and she's badass. Then you find out that she's actually being, kept in her parents' house and not really allowed to do anything, and fighting is, at night in secret is her way of like just getting out, right?
Right.
But then there's this point where basically they have to go rescue Aang.
Mm-hmm.
And there's literally like a small army, like everyone that fought in the tournament that she won is there, along with the person who oversaw it, to basically stop them.
A whole bunch of pro-earthbenders.
A whole bunch of pro-earthbenders.
Right.
Her dad is there, who has been constantly like, no, my daughter is small and tiny and fragile and can't do anything, and all that stuff. And there's this moment where he's leading her away, and she's like, you know what? No, I'm going to save him. And Katara and Sokka are like, all right, yeah, we'll help you. And she's like, no. They're mine. and then she just wipes the floor with all of them, while her father and the person who was trying to teach her earthbending, even though she already knew, are watching. And their jaws just like drop all the way to the floor as they can't believe what their eyes and what they're seeing.
Right.
And it's just, it is so worth it. And all of that is just done in the first episode, so it's all part of the character introduction.
Right. The Avatar story dynamic is very tight-knit with how they introduce characters, and there's not really any wasted time in that regard. So Toph gets a very quick introduction and is brought into the main cast, and they're off on their way with a whole new arc planned out for Toph, and the rest of the characters being combined with, her in this journey, all in 20 minutes. So it's done very well.
And here's one other thing. This isn't necessarily part of the character introduction, but it kind of is. Mm-hmm. When you do a character introduction, you want to make sure that the character can continue to live up to whatever you set the expectations for, right?
Right.
And if you set the expectations really high, like if someone's really powerful and all that stuff, then you have to be able to maintain that. And they did something really clever with Toph in Airbender, where they built her up to be like stupidly powerful, right?
Right.
And then they made her conveniently absent whenever she needed to be, so that they could still have serious fights. Mm-hmm. The finale for season 2, they never have her near Azula really for any length of time. They never have her near any of the big villains that need to be fought by the protagonists, right? Mm-hmm. She's just conveniently absent because she has to take over a castle or do something awesome.
Yeah, but you'll never notice it. Unless you're really paying attention. You're like, wait a minute, Toph never really fights any of the big bads when she probably could beat them.
Yeah.
But it's not that it's a thing of would she be able to, it's just a thing of, no, the story's written in such a way
that she's just not there
she's
at that
just
time.
not there, yeah.
Right. And it's just done so well, because if you think about it, that would have just been one of the worst things ever, to have this awesome introduction, but then have it just sort of peter out and fall flat and be like, oh, you're no better than anybody else.
Yeah, or have her completely override the story potential of other characters because she's that strong.
Exactly. Yeah. And they just handled it amazingly.
Handled it flawlessly. So Toph, well done.
Yep.
Mike and Brian, well done.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to Q&A?
Yes, Q&A.
All right, so Q&A. We got a couple questions from you guys here. Not too many, but some pretty good ones. Joe Mabe42 asks, if you could choose a teacher, which one it would be between these three? A, All Might, B, Saitama, and C, Erwin Smith.
That's
you go
tough.
first. You go first.
Okay, well, it wouldn't be Saitama, because I feel like Saitama, his power is so extreme that the amount of things that he would actually be able to teach you would be a bit more limited than someone like Erwin, who doesn't have any powers and makes up for that, or someone like All Might, who's just so dang inspirational that you just, you'd love to have him as your teacher. Although, if having All Might as my teacher meant that I could inherit One for All, I would...
No, he gave it to Deku.
I know, but yeah.
So I think you're...
I would probably
not
choose
getting an
Erwin
answer.
Smith. I would choose Erwin Smith.
Okay,
yeah.
I would choose All Might. I think All Might has a lot of things that I could learn from. Yeah. If you could choose a world from the same guy, if you could choose a world of any anime, which would it be and why? I think it means choose a world of any anime to be in.
Right.
Which would it be and why? I think it would. I'm breaking the rules. I don't care. I would just go into the Avatar world.
Yeah, that's
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, I
would
can't
just
really see
roll the dice and hope
anything
I
better.
wasn't a bender of some kind when I went there.
Right.
That'd be kind of lame to go there and not be a bender. I mean, it wouldn't suck completely, but I would just kind of have to watch them bending and stuff. So
yeah, Airbender just wins hands down. Like, what could you possibly have that would be better?
All right. Do you hate anime cliches? And if so, which cliches piss you off the most?
Well, I would just like to preface this by saying that anime cliches do not inherently piss us off. It's when they're poorly executed.
Yeah.
Right. Because the anime cliches exist for a reason. There was some good example of that anime cliche, hopefully, in most cases.
Right.
And that's why other people try to copy it, but they end up copying the wrong things.
I know a cliche that I've almost never seen done really well.
Oh yeah,
that's the token pervert character. I don't like those characters.
Great point.
I just don't. I think the one time I've seen like a kind of one of those, gotta get a look, here at someone who's semi-naked is Minarine from Toradora.
Okay, that was awesome.
When the guys, whose pants was that drop, and she like jumps out with a camera and starts like taking pictures.
Yeah, he's come out from a shower and he thought that his buddy was the only one there.
Yeah,
and he has a towel.
Right,
but then he realized that there are girls there. And she starts freaking out, busts out of camera, and starts taking pictures in these different angles. And then, of course...
But the thing is, he's not ashamed of it.
Right, he's not ashamed of it. He's just like, oh, come on, stop it. Like,
yeah, it's one of those funny things where it's usually in conjunction with someone else being like, oh, what the heck?
Yeah.
And that's... it's kind of annoying...
Yes.
When I see it, but when it's an actual character in a story, Mineta, that is literally there just for that, it kind of pisses me off.
I think we have a great example of a character who does that and does that well.
Really?
A couple. Darkness for one. Cosma as the other.
Okay. Potentially, but the thing is that they're
making fun of it. So
they're making fun of it. Yeah, it's a parody.
Yep.
So it kind of breaks the rules. Jacob, what's your anime?
I didn't expect you to mention Minarine and Toradora. That was.
I know.
Yeah,
it's gonna pull out some awesome references.
The two tropes that or cliches that I hate the most are the ones that I enjoy the most when they're done right.
Oh.
That is the tsundere, because my three favorite anime are Haruhi, Black Lagoon, and Toradora, not necessarily in that order.
Those are all main character tsunderes.
Right, and they're done amazingly, and I love it.
Most tsunderes you're saying are not done
But
well.
most tsunderes are done just to be able to say that they're a tsundere, and it sucks, right?
That sucks.
Also, tsunderes that are done as like the grumpy old man, those are awesome. But the other cliche that I absolutely hate when it's done poorly is the kudere. This has been something that's been a bit more popular lately. And that's where you have the person that doesn't show very much emotion, and they're copying it because there were characters like Rei or Yuki that did it very well, right? Rei.
Those are very common names to describe which.
Yeah, shows. Rei Ianami from NGE, and then Yuki Nagato from Haruhi.
Right.
And sometimes they'll copy the characters almost exactly, but they'll end up missing out on the very thing that made me like those characters, which is the points when they actually do show something beyond just being an emotionless, static image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool question. Do you have any jobs besides from YouTube, and what are your dream jobs, or what is your dream to become in life? Well, interesting. I'm glad that you prefaced or what is your dream to become in life, because I'm kind of tired. I'm not criticizing you for the question, but this is a question that Jacob and I get a lot sometimes, and it's kind of one of those, kind of shallow questions you can kind of get from people where it's like, "Hey, what's your name?" "Oh, my name is Caleb." It's like,
"What do you do?"
"What do you do?" Yeah. I'm like, "So, what do I do?"
It's like, do you want to know what my job is, or do you want to know what I actually want to do?
Right, exactly. It's a question of how do you make money?
Right.
And I think that's a question where, to an extent, I want to know, like, hey, why do you want to know that? Because I can tell you, it's like right now I have a online business and YouTube. That's basically it.
Right.
Jacob, you right now are
working on the book. Yep.
So you're
finished.
You're a soon-to-be author right now. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things where you could say, like you said, what is your dream to become in life? That's such a good question.
Yes.
Because it opens up an actual conversation. If I mean, this is a...
Exactly. It's not just a true-false answer.
Right.
You know, what,
you're not
where
looking
do you
for a
work?
response. You're looking for a conversation. One of my things, I'll just kind of go on a little bit of a rant here, is I am a quality time love language person. If you don't know what that is, that's cool. It just means I love to sit down and talk. Or just sit down next to people. So what we're doing right now is awesome. Like, I love doing what I'm doing right now. What is my dream to become in life? There's a whole lot of things. But that kind of starts a conversation. Like, there's things where I want to continue to be a more successful business owner. Like you said in the list. You're like business owner, soldier, actor, book author, web designer, etc. I want to be a father. Like, that's such a weird thing to say when someone's like, hey, what do you do in life? Well, it's like, I do some things there, but what I want to do, and you start telling them what you want to do.
Maze Hughes and Iroh are your...
Yeah, I love those guys.
Role models.
Maze Hughes and Iroh, holy crap. I would love to be those guys when I grow up. Like, at different stages. You know, I start as Maze Hughes, and I grow into Uncle Iroh. But there's that aspect of, like, well, what's a more creative question to ask? And I love that yours, what is your dream to become in life, is just a great alternative. And for you guys out there just listening and stuff like that, I'm no like guru or anything, but take note here. When you're introduced to someone and you're getting to know someone, since we're talking about character introductions, one of the best ways you can actually learn how to get better at character introductions is getting better at introducing yourself to people and getting better at reading and meeting new people. And one of the things you can do is ask a clever question that doesn't have a yes or no answer.
Right.
So when you say, what is your dream to become in life? I can't say yes.
Right.
I can't say no. I might say, which will almost never happen, trust me, I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
Right.
But hey, that could happen. But in this case, what is my dream to become in life? I really have a dream to be not a coach, but someone that helps other people achieve their dreams. So really like partnering alongside people who have a goal and being like a support system in a way to help them achieve said goal. So I'm done talking for a bit. Like what are you?
The thing you said about dreams, I absolutely love that. I'm very much the same way. I want to make stories. Like that's the
make stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I would say that's the how of what I want to do. Like if you haven't heard of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, he has a TED Talk on it. It's amazing. But it's basically saying that people usually start with what they want to do, how they want to do it, and then why they're going to do it, where it should be the opposite. You should start with why you want to do something, then how you're going to do it, and then what are the exact details of what you're going to be doing. And I think for us, our whys are very similar. It's that we want to help people dream.
Right.
That, like that's why we love these shows about the wide-eyed protagonist, right?
Yeah.
It's because they have a dream. They're full of wonder. And because we remember there was a time when we were like that ourselves and we want to be like that again.
Yep.
And that's why I want to make stories, because I want to bring people back to that place, whether it's through ripping their heart out emotionally or, having a great adventure story or whatever. I want to get people to what Kamina does, basically. That is what I want to be able to do. And then the way I'm doing that right now is I'm wanting to make stories just because I've always loved stories since forever, as long as I can remember.
Yep.
Eventually, I would like to be able to take that into a medium other than books and stuff. Like,
yes,
hopefully in the future.
Yeah, it's a great example of where almost what we're doing right now is just the medium that's available to us at the time. But if you think about what the themes are of what we as a channel are trying to do, we're wanting to try and do that in as many mediums as possible.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. Thank you very much for this question. It's a good one because it starts a very interesting conversation. All right, so Adib Leo 2. Here's a personality question for both of you. Which power would you choose for yourself? A, mind reading. B, teleportation. Or C, the talent to do everything right. And I'm going to translate talent to do everything right as being that you are successful in everything you do.
Right.
Like, meaning that not everything right is in you don't do everything, like, right is in right or wrong, but, like, correctly more than...
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think that there's a trick here, and I don't want to play like, oh, I'm so smart, and I'm going to answer once Jacob's picked his, but I'm going to pull something in here, Jacob, but I would love to know what's your initial...
C.
Because mine is B. Okay. So the thing I think there's a trick here, this personality question, if this is from an actual personality quiz or something like that, or you just came up with this, it's great. Because mind reading and talent to do everything right are basically the same thing in different contexts. So think about this. C is the ability to make you do what you want to do.
Right.
Okay? A is the ability to make everyone else do what you want them to do.
Well, it's not mind control, it's mind reading.
Oh, it's mind reading.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes it, yeah. Then I think C is not that similar. Okay, never mind. Huh. But if it was mind control, then that would basically be what I would boil it down to. To an extent, though, Jacob, if you have mind reading, the ability to influence someone...
Yeah, would be, if you have perfect mind reading, you would... Yes.
It is kind of the same thing, but it would be more about kind of pushing rather than
direct influence.
And directing. Yeah. I'm going to say B for teleportation because you put no limits on it.
Well, they didn't put any limits on C either.
I know. They did, actually. They said everything. Tell them to do everything, which means that it's everything.
Yeah.
I'm saying that that's an actual limit as much as it is an unlimitation. No, I'm saying that's what makes it good. Teleportation, they just said teleportation.
Right, so you could theoretically teleport into different points in time. And
yep, I could do almost anything with that.
And you could theoretically, potentially teleport into shows.
Teleportation with no strings attached, that sounds wonderful.
I would personally want to do C because the thing...
Yeah, why would you want to do C?
One of the things that I thought... they were putting in here as basically sort of the meta question within the question,
right,
is that with mind reading you could read people's minds. Great, right? But then you'd hear their thoughts, and a lot of people think things that they don't speak out loud for reasons, for very important reasons, because it's just some random thought or whatever, right?
Yep.
That's why teleportation, there's not really much like fine print with that one.
Yeah.
It's just
awesome.
It's just awesome. The talents who did everything right. I could see there being something where it's sort of like a Saitama thing where because you're not challenged by anything, you end up getting depressed.
That's why I didn't pick it. Yep.
I could see that happening, but the thing is, for me, a lot of the time, the doing of the thing is an end in and of itself.
Interesting philosophy.
So in the case of, say, like, I'm wanting to, be an influencer to people and help them dream again, through stories or through whatever, if it's not a challenge... That's all right because I know I'll be doing it. I know I'll be having the impact that I want to be able to have.
Do you want to know what's another meta reason why I chose B?
Because you already have the talent to do everything?
No.
I don't know.
Because I knew you were going to pick C.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if we're in the same universe and he picks C and I pick B, I don't need to have C because I'll just partner with him and he'll get it done. As long as I'd be working with the guy that has the ability to do everything right, it doesn't matter. It's just like, yep, I can't lose now. But then I can also go everywhere I want to go.
Right.
With no real side effects and stuff.
Right, instantaneously.
Teleporting. Yep. All right, good question. All right, Yugo XGC. I love your questions.
Yes.
You always give plenty of questions for us. But I think you jumped the gun a little bit on your first question here. I'm going to give verbatim. Do you think Korra was wasted potential?
Well, okay, so there was a little bit before that, but I sort of...
okay, good to know.
Chase.
But this kind of draws your own hand.
Right.
Basically, you're kind of revealing your own opinion. So I'm going to pull back here a little bit. Legend of Korra is a sequel series to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Came out 4 years later, made by the same creators, with different animation studio, different directors and all this other kind of stuff. Some similar writers, but the main gist of it was made by the same people, produced by Nickelodeon, same thing like that. But the thing is that Korra has wasted potential in it. It is not wasted.
Right. It does a lot of things very well.
In some respects, I can see how a lot of people would not be able to stand Avatar: Last Airbender, but love Korra. Like, I know it's a sacrilege. It's horrible to say that, but I will always love Avatar: Last Airbender more than Korra. But one of the things that I noticed with Korra in particular was it gets you into the story much faster than Avatar: Last Airbender does.
That's true. That's true. If you're not looking for sort of the whimsical adventure that Avatar does early on, you don't really see the hints of something more until episode 3.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it really kicks off in the storm.
But there's a lot of questions here that he's got. So, do you think it could be better than The Last Airbender if it got 3 seasons from the start? I think it could.
I think it could have, yeah.
I think it could have.
Especially if the seasons were the same length as Airbender seasons, because Korra seasons were, one core, like, 12,
Sure.
13, 14 episodes, something like that. Avatar had 20.
Right, but you realize the reason why he's saying this is because of the way that they released the 4 seasons.
Right.
They had
Yes.
one season, and they're like, oh, we want another season. Okay, then we want a second season. Oh, we actually want 2 more seasons.
Right.
And then they did 2
and
more
those
seasons.
last 2 seasons were the ones where they actually had like tie-ins between them, as opposed to just being like, all right, independent stories that are, lined up.
Right. So, absolutely. Next question. How do you think the writers handled character development from own characters and characters from the original show? It was a little weak. I would say that character development was probably one of the weaker things in Legend of Korra. I would say, if anything, they really nailed it in the 3rd and 4th season.
Yeah. Early on they had moments that were good character development. They had good character development arcs, but they didn't always make it enjoyable. There were sometimes like the main one that stands out to me is Korra in like early season 2.
Yeah, Korra early season 2. I think everyone knows that.
Yeah. It's the idea that is an actual thing that people go through, right?
Yeah.
Zuko started out that way, just a lot more extreme. But the reason people didn't like it as much is because we had already had a season of her before where she didn't have to deal with those problems.
Yeah.
Now she was essentially, it just felt like this random out of nowhere regression, which, while completely normal, for especially when you're around that age, right, where you're trying to figure out who you are and what you believe and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're forgetting also the plot point of that she just found out that her father and Tenzin had been keeping her in the Southern Water Tribe.
Yes.
And not Aang, so effectively had been lying to her. It was just not executed properly. Right. That's okay. That's okay. It's decent. It's decent stuff, but I think you'll find us having more and more problems with melodrama.
Yes.
Because it's harder to execute melodrama correctly.
Right.
What do you think of the world development in Legend of Korra? Thoughts about the ending? I think that's 2 separate questions.
Yeah.
But the world development in Legend of Korra was good to great to sometimes a little bit kind of iffy.
Yeah.
But I would say in general, Legend of Korra killed it on the world development.
Right. Not quite as much as Last Airbender,
No.
because Last Airbender was an adventure show, so it was
10 out of 10 in world building.
10 out of 10 in world building.
Legend of Korra is like 8.5 out of 10.
Right. It's still great.
It's still great.
Yeah.
But thoughts on the ending? I thought the ending was not great. It was not bad, though. One of the things that I think a lot of people like to do is infer too much into the ending.
Yes.
And when I say infer, I mean basically say that it was planned. And one of the things that you can go back through the story stuff is just bring up all the potential things where it shows that it could have been planned. And I can bring up an exact other reason as to how it was hinting at something else, meaning that it was kept just vague enough,
right,
that unfortunately because of the channel they were airing this on, they couldn't actually be as obvious or explicit as they wanted to let us know what their intentions were at the ending until a blog post that came a day later,
right,
which, to be fair, feels a little bit tacked on.
Yeah.
Like it was a great ending from, the standpoint of the capitulation of Korra's journey.
Yes, absolutely.
But the Korra and Asami bit in particular, which I think was what you're mentioning, it had a little bit of foreshadowing in season 4
and season 3,
and like one bit in season 3.
Right, but it could have been done better.
It could have been done better. I think it's going to be great to see like how they choose to handle it in the little comic that's coming out, but I'm guessing that because it's coming out in a comic, they won't be as directly involved with the writing, which means the writing is probably not going to be as good. I would say that that's one thing that the Korra people, they did pretty well, was when the writing was good, it was great.
It was really good, yeah.
There was a lot of times where the writing wasn't good, and that was just because they had to get a bunch of other writers involved. Yeah, don't do that. Like, do a more tight-knit written story like you did for book 1, where it was all you.
Right.
I mean, your ending wasn't perfect, but the middle and the lead up to the ending.
If it was a standalone season, for just that show and that was it, that would have been
almost perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so
before we move on, one other thing about the ending. So I think one of the reasons that a lot of people have trouble with the ending is that endings shouldn't introduce anything new into the story, right? Into the narrative, unless it's done in such a way so that when it's introduced, people are like, oh, of course, duh. You know that.
Well, that's the argument that's being made, though,
right,
Jacob.
But
so it wasn't new. You just would have liked it to be less new.
Well,
you're
either,
talking about orders of magnitude, not
right.
actually.
Right. It's an orders of magnitude thing. So it's not that what they were trying to do was bad or anything like that. Even with how they were wanting to execute it, but because of the channel they were on, they weren't able to basically get enough behind what they were doing.
Yeah, there wasn't enough meat on it.
Right.
Like we didn't actually see more than maybe 3 things that I would say are obvious hints towards the relationship developing that way. And we have no problems with the relationship developing that way.
It's just that
it
give us
could have
more.
been executed better. And I think that as an ending for a series, like outside of just the romance side of things, I would say that it wasn't perfect, but the fact that it ended with Korra and Tenzin
that was
ended
awesome.
with Asami and Korra, I think was great. I also think that Korra deciding to end things with the antagonist that way was just so good.
Yep.
So good.
It was awesome.
So I would give it like another 8 or 8.5 out of 10 ending.
Yeah.
Just pretty good. What was it satisfying? Yes. Do you think the romance there was well set up and executed? We already answered that question. Yep. Could have been better with the limitations the staff had. Yes. Absolutely. That's another question we basically just answered. I mean that maybe we could get more of that romance if the network allowed it, or there were just more important things happening around, and that was why it had so little focus. Yep.
And and there was also
exactly what we were thinking.
And then there was also all the trouble that they had with them changing the airing times and the schedules and like
that's show problems
and cutting funding.
This person's being very specific.
Yeah.
About the romance. But I would say Korra in general, people will knock it so much for doing things that
weren't as good as Airbender.
No. I'm talking about things where they get like really accusatory. Like having the most boring or horrible main character ever, having retconned world development, having what was the other one that was pretty big? Having Deus Ex Machina plot endings. All those things, there's some semblance of accuracy to what they're saying, but when you actually go into it, they're all based on interpretations.
Right.
None of them are based entirely on just this is the only interpretation things can be viewed as. I think that some of those points that they're bringing up all happen to just coincide within book 2 primarily, which is why book 2 is not the best of. It is the worst, I would say, of.
Probably.
I'm not saying this objectively. This is our opinion.
Well, okay. I might actually. My personal least favorite book would actually probably be book 4.
Oh, really?
I didn't like Kuvira as an antagonist. Like, at least we could get rid of Unalaq and say that it's actually Vaatu, you know? But that was one of those things where, kind of like with the romance between Korra and Asami, I would have wanted, especially since they knew they were doing seasons 3 and 4, right? At the same time, I would have wanted them to actually introduce Kuvira as a character earlier when they were in the metal bending city and all that stuff,
which they technically did, but
but she wasn't a character. They showed her character design, and they had someone address her once, and she had one line at the very end, but that was it. They could have made her like a fun side character going along in there, and then it would have actually we would have cared so much more when all the stuff was happening in book 4.
To an extent, I agree. I would say that putting book 4 as a whole into the below book 2 category just because of those things.
And I'm probably excusing the early parts of season 2 more than I should.
Because you haven't watched them in a while, I'd say.
Yeah, I haven't watched them in a while, but
I've been rewatching Legend of Korra habitually, like every 6 months.
I absolutely loved everything in season 2 from beginnings on. But I didn't really have many parts of that in book 4 that I liked nearly as much.
Interesting, because book 4 has the whole Korra recovery arc. And
all right.
I don't know
that the Korra alone episode was awesome.
Yeah, I would say that it comes close. Sure, I would say I think we both have the same agreement that book 3, book 1, book 4, book 2 is the order. I would say that to some extent, book 1 is one of those more controversial, I would say, rankings within the fandom, because book 1 you either like didn't mind the ending, you loved the ending, you hated the ending, and it dramatically changes your opinion on like how the book kind of fits within the grand scheme of things. And I know some people that put book 1 as their favorite one out there, whereas I've seen book 2, people always have this kind of general lower than the best ones out there. And book 3 was the best one. But that's kind of interesting. I mean, Legend of Korra, guys, if you haven't seen it, but you have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, watch it.
Yeah,
just watch it.
Just do it.
One of the things that people love to nitpick on are things that they really love.
Yes.
And one of the things that you'll know almost immediately going into the show, they tell you right, the first line really that Korra says is it's not Avatar: The Last Airbender.
It's not.
It's really not.
It's a different show.
When you go in and you start comparing it to Avatar: The Last Airbender, you're going to be disappointed. Like, 1, because it's a different show, but 2, like, they do different things well. Like, the villains in Legend of Korra, holy crap. Like, he's talking about Kuvira being a weak villain.
But, like, Zahir, Amon?
No, compared to any Book 1 villain, any Avatar villain that's not Azula.
Yeah.
She's better than all of them. Even Ozai, technically.
Yep.
Like, Ozai, if you think about it, is basically the Emperor from Star Wars.
Right.
He has almost nothing going for him except the fact that he has this tension with Zuko.
Right.
And he has that part at the invasion episode.
Right.
But that... Kuvira is actually pretty compelling. And then Zahir just is fantastic.
Yeah.
Unalaq, although being quite weak, is a very interesting premise for a villain. It's very, very terrifying to think of. And it's one of those ones where I wish I was doing reaction videos at the time, because I predicted Unalaq's whole thing.
He totally did.
The trailer came out for book 2.
Yep. He was like, Dark Avatar, here we go.
Wow, spoiler alert, Jacob.
Well. Okay. Well.
Anyway, but then Amon gets
Steve
put on
Bloom for the win.
I know, but Amon gets put on people's top 10 villain list of all time. Like,
yeah.
Like, you go out and look out there and you find this guy, this masked guy, and he's a good antagonist.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's kind of the gist of our spiel on Legend of Korra.
Yep.
It's a good show. It's not Avatar: The Last Airbender. It has great moments. It has weak moments, and it ends well enough.
Yeah. Just go into it to enjoy it for its own thing.
Yep.
And you'll
exactly. And you probably will enjoy it. Yeah. You probably will be happy that you made the choice to watch it rather than whatever else you were going to watch.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, that's the gist of our podcast, Jacob.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.